we had a rehearsal with Art Blakey. The phone rings at the rehearsal, and Lee picks up the phone and says real loud, "It's Miles." And Art is sitting right there on the drums, and Miles said, "Are you ready?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, come on." Art, he's playing the drums and he's looking over there. I'm standing over here. He's trying to steal my saxophone player.
And Blakey got on the phone and threatened to break 6 or 7 crucial bones in Miles's body.
Tony and I were like, woo! This is gonna be incredible. Wayne's gonna be with us. This is great, you know.
That was the trailer for Wayne Shorter, Zero Gravity, releasing on August 25th on Amazon Prime. And this is Factual America. I'm your host, Matthew Sherwood. Each week I watch a hit documentary and then talk with the filmmakers and their subjects. Zero Gravity is an intimate portrait and cinematic ode to jazz giant Wayne Shorter's life and music. Long considered one of the greatest modern composers and musicians of American music, it is Shorter's life that has been an inspiration to all who have known him. Producer and director Dorsay Alavi joins us to talk about her longtime friend and mentor and the documentary that was a lifetime in the making. Stay tuned. Dorsay, welcome to Factual America. How are things with you?
Very good. It's good to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on. As our listeners and viewers should know, after seeing that intro, we're listening to it, we're talking about Wayne Shorter, Zero Gravity. It releases on August 25th this year on Amazon Prime. What would have been Wayne Shorter's 90th birthday, who unfortunately passed away earlier this year, but after a very extremely fruitful and long life. So welcome again to Factual America, and congratulations on the release. It must be quite a relief for you, and yes, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a long journey, but we're finally here.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that journey in a bit, but maybe for our listeners who probably haven't had a chance to see this will be embargoed till I'm not exactly sure when, but just before or right around the release time. What is Wayne Shorter Zero Gravity all about? Maybe you can give us a synopsis.
Well, it's actually my cinematic portrait of Wayne Shorter's life and music, and I weigh heavily more on his life. The music is very important, but he is such an enigmatic, amazing human being, and my focus was to tell his story in 3 parts and 3 pivotal moments of his life and music, and how his life informed his music.
Indeed, and but I think probably first people probably come to this knowing him through the music, and what an incredible career he had. Absolutely amazing. I mean, it's jazz icon after jazz icon gets mentioned in your film. It's the typical thing that those first name, you say Miles, John, Art, Herbie, everyone knows exactly who you're talking about. But is it fair enough to say that people don't usually just say Wayne? I mean, he's I think anyone who knows the music knows who Wayne Shorter is, but he is a bit more, as you say, enigmatic, not quite the household name that many of these other giants were.
Well, we're hoping that's about to change, because I think that Wayne Shorter does deserve to be a household name. He has certainly contributed to American music and American history, and that was the impetus behind doing this documentary, was that I felt that the general public should be aware of his contributions, because they're vast, and it's not just in the genre of jazz. Indeed.
I mean, it starts off with jazz, but jazz fusion. I mean, it's just a litany. Joni Mitchell, Milton, Nascimento. I mean, it's
Carlos Santana. Yeah.
Yes, Santana. I mean, where do you stop with this film? I mean, it's I guess it gets overused, but it's fair enough to say that he was a visionary and a pioneer.
Yes.
Yeah, and if we did Mount Rushmores for jazz, you could make a good argument he should be on it.
On it. That's absolutely right.
And you So what's interesting about your film, because as you say, it's not just about the music, it's also about a portrait of him as a man and his life. And you've spent a lot of, well, he was more than a jazz musician. Let's start there. I mean, philosopher, Joni Mitchell even mentions him as sort of a painter, painting with notes, you know. What is this? What should people know that they don't know about, I mean, without giving away the whole film? People should just watch the three episodes. But what is it? What is this other side of Wayne Shorter's life that people may not know about?
Well, you know, the story really is about how he grew to greatness, and so much of that is he was a Buddhist, and his philosophy. I think in a lot of ways, what Wayne did was he spoke through his music. He was having a dialogue with his audience at all times, raising people's frequency beyond, you know, the intellect. He was trying to say things that were formless, like your virtues, fearlessness. You are the master of your own destiny. And he really lived by those principles. And, you know, so many people, they're spiritualists, but when it comes down to it, are they really practicing that every single day of their life? And Wayne, he was that in every sense of the word. He, so much about Wayne is that he was very, he was not behind the scenes. He was a leader in a much more subdued, reserved manner. But when you were in his presence, you could feel what emanated from his was greatness. And he was interested in every single person that he met. He was interested in your story. He was interested in your well-being. And that I was always so fascinated that every single person who crossed his path, he was interested in their story. So there's so much about Wayne that's interesting, but he also had this childlike demeanor that was so profound, but childlike. He had maintained that free spirit of a child and the exploration that children have. And he applied that to his music, and he applied it to his life in many ways.
Yeah, I think, go ahead.
Well, he was also started as a visual artist. So when she says paint with pictures, he is very visual. And he always said, I'm making, my music is making movies without pictures. And so he was very visual in his compositions as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, because he has this, yeah, you're right, he's this avid fan of cinema and film. And, well, we've had other docs on. We've had Miles Davis. We had one about James Baldwin. And James Baldwin was similar. They're very similar kind of individuals. This kind of, I guess it's about Hollywood at the time and how we absorbed these sort of images and what it was telling us about our societies and things. And it's throughout his career. I mean, I love even the stuff, not to give, you know, spoiler alerts, but even this telling people to watch a film that everyone just agrees is absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
But he even gets, but then he gets a joy out of it because there's a point to that. There's a point.
Something out of everything. There's something profound that he can glean from every situation. And that's what's so fascinating about Wayne.
Yeah. And so, but as you said, his Buddhism informed this. He practiced it for over 50 years. But there was something there as well before he even found Buddhism. And and you talked to, I think it was Art Blakey or someone else talked about he had the imagination of a child still throughout his life. But as you spend a lot of time with him, I gather, because I've been watching the film and I've seen a lot of different, you know, it's not just one sit down. You've had a lot of time with him.
I did.
Any insights into what was and still is in many ways going on in Wayne Shorter's head?
Well, it's that I probably can't answer, but I can tell you that, you know, I've known Wayne since 1994, and he was a very close friend of mine as well. Yeah. I did direct his music video for Verve Records in '94, and that's how we met. And we stayed friends until the very end. So I had many, many conversations with Wayne on a personal level and was very close to his family. Wayne has had a profound influence on my family as well. And I think that he just does that for everybody who is close to him. There's so many layers to Wayne, but I would say mostly he's a very, very principled person. And I believe that he has always been very authentic and true to what he has always done on an artistic level, but in life as well.
And so that's incredible. It brings up many issues. How is it trying to make a documentary about someone who's also a close friend? You know, it can be a challenge. I'm sure.
I kind of decided that I was going to always be a fly on the wall, and I was going to sort of be a conduit in a way. And, I'm not the most obvious, I wasn't the obvious choice to tell Wayne's story. I think that most people thought, oh, well, she's this young, filmmaker. Why her? But I think Wayne and I had a very unspoken understanding of each other. I just got Wayne immediately. A lot of people have a hard time understanding Wayne, but for me, it was very easy. I got it. We both think outside the box. We're always, trying to push the envelope. We're always looking for something different. That's where we were very aligned. And I think that he knew that I was going to really protect his story and tell it truthfully without an agenda.
Well, is it Herbie Hancock who says he wanted to get to know Wayne, and he wasn't sure if he was a genius or if he was just crazy, and spent a lot of time with him, discovered he was a genius, but that he thinks everyone else is a genius as well.
He does. He truly does.
So is that how in terms of your relationship with him, that's how you've, you mentioned his spirituality. I mean, it almost sounds like things I hear about people who described it in the past as saints, that they're also, there's something, you always feel like you are their best friend almost.
Yeah.
And then when you show up at the funeral, whatever it is, you find out
there's all those people there.
there's all these like 2,000 people there who say, yeah, he was my best friend,
Well, and it's totally genuine. I mean, he is very interested. And when he is speaking to you, he's very present. And he is interested in your journey, and especially those who are close to him. He was a spiritual mentor for me and for many people, but also a life mentor. Just watching him react to the obstacles in his life, and how just never let it get him down. He always saw an obstacle as an opportunity. And most people, when things get rough, it's tough. But with Wayne, his spirit was always elevated. And it was very inspiring to be around. And he's not a preachy person. That's the thing with, he never preaches about anything. He shares things, and he's always thinking about things, but you're just inspired by being in his presence. And, what can I say? There's so much to say about him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you alluded to this as well. I mean, the thing that, and I wasn't necessarily aware of, but add to this a resilience and all the heartbreak that he did encounter in life. Yes. It was quite, we don't have to go down to details about that, but it is quite, I don't know. Many famous, certainly jazz musicians have had their challenges and tough times, but just these sort of seemingly, it's probably the right stress on that word, random things that happened in his life that were, could be full of heartbreak and were full of heartbreak. His first marriage, his second wife, and, the tragic deaths and things like that. And yet, throughout the film, it doesn't seem like that's ever, it's this interesting insight that he sees that there's a purpose to every single thing that happens, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a reason.
Yes, there's a reason. And when you view life as eternal, that gives he has a bird's eye view of life and situations. So he's always able to rise above it and look at it from that point of view. And it's interesting, when I met Wayne, I was right out of film school. I was directing music videos, and they said, "Oh, we want you to do a music video for a jazz legend." And I didn't know who Wayne Shorter was. I knew Miles Davis. I knew John Coltrane. I didn't know who Wayne Shorter was.
Right.
And then I went over there to interview him, and I decided had such a playful spirit. I decided to ask him a few funny questions or unusual questions, like, what's your favorite animal and why? And if you were in a dark room in a vessel by yourself, what would you feel? And of course, his answer was, I love eagles. And if I was in a dark vessel underground, I would fly. And I went, oh my gosh, this guy's great. Yeah. And so we did the whole video up on a rooftop in the Scientology building in Los Angeles.
Right.
And so I feel that in many ways, that's how Wayne was. He always looked at everything from that point of view.
Okay. Well, I think this takes us to a good point for a break for our listeners and viewers. So we'll be right back with Dorsay Alavi, producer and director of Wayne Shorter, Zero Gravity. Releases on August 25th on Amazon Prime.
You're listening to Factual America. Subscribe to our mailing list or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Alamo Pictures to keep up to date with new releases or upcoming shows. Check out the show notes to learn more about the program, our guests, and the team behind the production. Now back to Factual America.
Welcome back to Factual America. I'm here with Dorsay Alavi, producer and director of Wayne Shorter, Zero Gravity. Releases on August 25th on Amazon Prime. Dorsay, this doc was a long time in coming, wasn't it? Beyond that, you've known Wayne for much of your life. Did this actually get started way back in 2015? Is that when this project got kicked off, or even before that?
Oh, much sooner. Actually, in 2004, Wayne said to me, his quartet, he had finally found the right, team for his quartet. Right. So excited about it. And I said, well, somebody needs to start documenting this for you. So I flew to Paris and started shooting. And then I really thought about it. And I said, you know what? Somebody needs to make a film about your life and what you're doing. And he was game. And so we sort of started shooting then. And then there was a long period of time where I was on another project and we stopped. But whenever he was in town, I started shooting. But it wasn't until 2013 that I really started to put a crowdfunding campaign together and really said, we're going to do this now. It's now or never. And it started then, and we completed it in 2019.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, and how'd the crowdfunding go? You had like a donor event and all these things?
Yeah, I started with the donor event, but then we did a concert fundraiser that Herbie Hancock hosted, and a bunch of wonderful musicians played. We raised some funds there, and then we started getting funding, and it just all started to come together. And at the same time, I was shooting all over the world. Wayne was never at home. I was always having to fly somewhere because he was touring, and so I had to go wherever he was. So it was, it did take a lot longer because of that reason, but it was so fun to shoot, to shoot all those amazing concerts with him.
Well, we've already and there's it's amazing footage what you have. I mean, we've already talked about what it was like trying to make a film about as a friend. But how do you approach making a doc about at the very least a jazz icon and someone like Wayne, who's, I mean, can you live up to his artistic vision? How do you try to match that? What are you thinking when you go in saying how am I going to shape this project?
I actually don't do that. I actually don't think about what I'm going to do. I approached it very much like Wayne approaches his music, without a preconceived idea, and allow the material to start informing me of what this is actually going to be. And I actually didn't know until I had shot everything and I started going into the editing room and really starting to feel what was most essential about the film. But I always led me back to the human being, And Wayne always says, human being first, music second. And that's exactly how I approached making this film. is that I started with Wayne as a human being. What do I want to show people? What do I want to tell people about him? And what makes his story universal? Because this is not just about jazz, even though we cover it. And but jazz is more than just even a genre too. So in many ways, I just went with who I knew, and all the interviews, the wonderful people I interviewed. I learned so much more about Wayne Shorter through other people as well.
Right. And what's it like working with Wayne? I mean, it's different than being a friendship. He's you very upfront. He's enigmatic. He's an introvert. So could make him a potentially difficult subject to put in front of the camera when he's not performing or not. How was that? Or was he trying to give you creative ideas and input as well?
No, not at all. I think what it comes down to is trust. I think when Wayne really trusts the person who's in front of who's shooting the footage or who's interviewing him, a lot comes out. And at the time when you're talking to him, he's giving you a lot of information, and you may not grasp how potent that information is till later, because there's some of it's so profound and so deep and over your head. But then when I actually read the transcriptions, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. What he's saying here is amazing, you know?
Right.
But at the moment you're having a conversation and I'm trying to get through questions, you know, but he gave me so much because there was a lot of trust between us because we had known each other for so many years. And I can always tell when Wayne is uncomfortable in a situation. He starts speaking in riddles and parables because he's trying to say something that's over the person's head, but I know what he's saying, you know? So, I don't know. It wasn't very hard for me because I know him so well, and maybe that's why. But yes, Wayne is a difficult person for a lot of people to understand. And part of the challenge in making the film was to edit it in a way so that people could understand what Wayne was saying and pluck out those really potent antidotes and make them tangible for people to get. Oh, okay, I get it. You know, I get what he's saying.
Right. But it's your film's so much more than that. Obviously, it's more than just a bunch of talking heads with all these great anecdotes, which they're great. Believe me, they're amazing. And you get some amazing people on there. But you know, you pulled out all the stops. I think you've got animation, you've got all kind and very kind of cutting edge stuff going on in terms of trying to bring out, put you know, as you say, paint this portrait of this man.
Well, I didn't want to do a typical documentary, and I didn't want to do a jazz documentary.
Right,
you know, I wanted to make a film, and I'm a narrative filmmaker, so I approached it like a narrative, and I wanted people to feel like they were there in that time period, and that's what those portals are. They're representative of a certain time in his life that was pivotal, and I wanted the audience to feel like they actually were there. And so some of those recreations and the animation and all of that really helped with that, because I didn't have any footage to work with. Wayne didn't have anything for, I'd say, the first, 35, 40 years of his life. I didn't have anything to recreate a lot of it.
Yeah, he doesn't strike me as the type of man who would have someone with a video camera running around all the time.
I'm sure somebody did, but I didn't have access to it. It was hard to find.
But what's interesting is that it often does come back to that inner child. I mean, doesn't he say in the towards the end of your film, it's again, we're not giving anything away, but it all goes back to that sandlot outside of
the vacant lot. Yes, it absolutely does. And he's always inviting people into that vacant lot, by the way.
Oh, is he?
He loves to play. He wants you to free yourself up and be authentic and play. And it's what makes him such a great artist in many ways, because he's not confined to anything. Nor does he want the genre to be confined in the same way.
And do you think that's sort of, as you say, he's trying to talk to us through his music, and is that one of the messages he's conveying to us, that we just need to latch on to this inner child that we have, and
Yes.
it's not weighed down by the expectations of adulthood or whatever it is, and can see the world differently. Is that kind of...
Well, as a child, everything is possible, right?
Yeah.
And you can make your dreams come true. And he is saying to you, you are the master of your own destiny, and you don't need to be fearful, and never give up is his big one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he wants people to live their fullest, to their fullest potential.
Yeah.
And he feels that vacant lot for him was the groundwork for everything that he did in his entire career.
Yeah. Well, I will say I was aware of his music and things, but I certainly wasn't aware of the man and the life. So it's quite an incredible... I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've had the luxury of seeing it before it's been released, so I do recommend that everyone else have do check it out when it releases on August 25th. I think we're coming close to the end of our time together, but just want to say, what's next for you in terms of your career?
Well, I have a couple of projects. I am, like I said, I'm a narrative filmmaker, so I am writing a series right now, and I am looking for maybe another doc. I don't know, but maybe hop over to the narrative side again for a bit.
Yeah. So go ahead.
That was it.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say there are people who do both.
Yes.
There are people who try one and say never again. But how about is making a doc harder than making a narrative? Is that an obvious statement, or do you think it just depends?
It depends. I think if you're going to do it like I did it, it is harder because it took a really long time, but not necessarily. I mean, you have challenges in every, medium. And I think that narrative film has its own set of challenge. It's a shorter process than documentaries. You're accumulating so much material. And in most times you're actually writing the script in the editing room. I mean, at least that's the way that I did it.
Right.
But I wouldn't say one is more difficult. I just think they're very different. The process is very different. But I loved making a documentary, and it opened my eyes to other possibilities for sure.
Okay. Well, I do hope after you've gone after your narrative experiment that you do come back to the documentary world, and we'd love to have you on again. And thank you so much for making this film. I really appreciate it. Just to remind our viewers and listeners, we've been talking with Dorsay Alavi, producer and director of Wayne Shorter, Zero Gravity. Check it out. Releases on August 25th. On Amazon Prime on what would have been Wayne Shorter's 90th birthday, but as we've been certainly as Dorsay's been talking, he's still very much in the present tense as we talk. So, but he's and always will be as long as people are playing his music. So, thanks again for coming on. We really, really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Factual America. If you did, please remember to like us and share us with your friends and family, wherever you happen to listen or watch podcasts. I would also like to thank those who make this podcast possible. A big shout out to Sam and Joe at Inner Sound Audio in York, England. A big thanks to Amy Ord, our podcast manager at Alamo Pictures, who makes sure we continue getting great guests onto the show and everything runs smoothly. And finally, a big thanks to you, our listeners. Many of you have been with us for 4 incredible seasons. Please keep sending us feedback and episode ideas, whether it is on YouTube, social media, or directly by email. This is Factual America, signing off. You've been listening to Factual America. This podcast is produced by Alamo Pictures, specializing in documentaries, television, and shorts about the USA for international audiences. Head on down to the show notes for more information about today's episode, our guests, and the team behind the podcast. Subscribe to our mailing list or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Alamo Pictures. Be the first to hear about new productions, festivals showing our films, and to connect with our team. Our homepage is alamopictures.co.uk.